Okay, so this video is about how I stumbled into mediumship. I was not looking to be a medium, and it turns out that that's true for a lot of people who come to it. So I have this regular day job, and as a creative outlet, I do a lot of community theater. So I just started a new show, and it had just started rehearsals, and we'd gotten a prop that we hadn't had before. So a particular rehearsal was about to start, and I ducked backstage to go get this prop. And I didn't know where it was, so I had to look in a couple different places. And as I was looking for it, I get this stronger and stronger feeling that people were going to think I was stealing something from backstage. Totally irrational thought. I'd done other shows there before. I was the lead in this particular show. So there was no reason for me to worry that that's what people were thinking. But I was dreading. I had this, I don't want to get caught feeling. So it got so strong that I stopped looking for the prop. I went back out on stage. And as soon as I was out there and the lights were on and the whole cast was there, and I just thought, well, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. So I turned around and I marched backstage and I went, I threw open the prop cabinet. And as soon as I did that, I was just choking on this feeling of, I don't want to get caught. Like I was sure people were going to think I was stealing. Found the prop, I grabbed it and I went back out on stage and we did rehearsal. The next day, everyone involved in that show got an email saying that during rehearsal at some point, money had been stolen backstage out of somebody's purse and that they really needed it back. So I knew when I read that theft was happening while I was backstage. It was the first time that I was aware of experiencing someone else's thoughts and feelings as though they were my own thoughts and feelings. It was super weird. I've had a range of paranormal experiences over my whole life since I was a toddler, but never anything like this. Didn't know what to do, didn't know what to think. So I called a Reiki friend of mine. She's this amazing Reiki master. And I said, can I take you to lunch? And she's like, sure. So she pointed me to this, like a psychic development center that's no longer there because of the pandemic. And they did different classes on different nights. And the night that I went there, they happened to be reading auras. So the woman teaching the class, there were about 30 of us in the class, she's up front, she's telling us how to do this. And I'm not looking directly at her, I'm kind of looking around the edges of her. And I found that my mind was wandering. And I was thinking about an article that I had read on the RH factor in blood and how if two parents have different RH factors, their child can be born jaundiced. And I was remembering a guy I went to high school with who had been born jaundiced. And I caught myself and I thought, why am I thinking about that during this exercise? And so I said, maybe it's related. I said, were you or somebody very close to you jaundiced? And that got her full attention. Her eyes got really big and she turned to me and she said, yes. And what that was somebody very close to her in spirit, someone who had died, had been jaundiced. And she said a lot of mediums get lots of her relatives, but not this particular person. That was really unusual. So that was my first inkling that maybe I should look into mediumship. A few weeks later, they did a class on mediumship. And so I went to that and had an obvious knack for it. I knew I had to look into this more. And a participant in that class pointed me to Facebook groups that organize online circles over Zoom. They're worldwide. And so I will talk about those circles more in the next video. But that's how I started. I did a few of those circles dozens of times. And then I got to know people in them. And some that I thought were really, really good, I contacted them privately and said, how did you develop this? Do you have a teacher? Did you go somewhere? Some people pointed me to the Arthur Findlay College in England. Others pointed me to private tutors that they had worked with, professional mediums that they had worked with. And so after I had done maybe 100 different sessions in different circles, I went with actual tutors, professional tutors. And so that's how it started. But over the next couple of years of development, it became more and more obvious that I should have clued into what this was years earlier. Obvious now, but it wasn't obvious at the time. So when I was about 6 years old, I could feel that there were people in my house with me that I couldn't see. And they weren't ghosts, they weren't spirits, they weren't energy. I get them then, I get them now as people. So I actually went around our crummy little rental house that we had, knocking on all the walls, trying to hear a hollow sound, looking for a secret passage, because I'd seen that in cartoons. I knew there were people in the house with me. And then around 8 or 9 years old, I had what I thought of. I really thought I had a magical finding things ability, because I called it following my feet, because I could find people and things. So that became a game with my mom, where anytime we went to the market or to a department store, I'd wait outside. I'd send her in ahead of me. I'd say, I'm going to find you. She'd go in, and I'd wait a couple of minutes, and then I'd go and I'd walk directly to wherever she was. That was my earliest expression of mediumship, because I wasn't magically finding her. They were nudging me, turn left here, go up the escalator, turn left again, turn right. And it's exactly how they nudge me now when I'm doing a reading into saying certain things or triggering certain memories. And then about puberty, around the age of 12, and for years until I deliberately began doing mediumship, every once in a while, like once every couple of years, I would feel a hand rest gently on my back, and I would feel moved to say very specific things. Typically when I was alone with somebody, and the advice was, it was always advice. It was always something that the other person needed to hear. I didn't know that, but that's how it turned out to be. So when I was a little kid and I would do this, the universal reaction that I got from adults was, "How old are you?" And then the older I got, as I became a young adult and then got older, I knew that I was passing on messages. I just didn't know from where. So even though I was used to passing on messages from somewhere, and even though I loved the John Edward crossing over TV show, I never put it together that I was doing the same thing. It never occurred to me. It's obvious now. It wasn't obvious then. So I had, okay, so when I start to do reading, I sit down, I get really quiet, and they flex my feet. I know that sounds weird, but my toes kind of go like that really slowly. I can watch it happen. I'm not doing it. I can watch it happen if I'm not wearing shoes. I feel it happen inside my shoes if I'm fully dressed. And so I had been in development for more than a year, and I was telling a medium friend of mine over Zoom about the follow your feet story when I was a kid. And I stopped, I caught myself, and I realized, oh, they're still using my feet. Like that's still a thing. So there was no big dramatic club you over the head moment. I didn't see ghosts walking up to me. I've never heard disembodied voices, nothing like that. It was a gradual realization on my part. So if you're wondering about mediumship and yourself, don't look for big club you over the head moments. It's not like you're going to wake up one morning and this is going to be happening to you. It's very subtle. It's very gradual. And I've heard a lot of people's stories. And for most of us, that's true. It's a slow, subtle, gradual process. But I do want to end with this. I want to end this video with this. A lot of people who stumble into mediumship, the way it happens for them is somebody very close to them dies, but they can still feel them. And so if this is you, because they know they're not crazy, they know that person is for sure passed, and they also definitely can still feel that person with them. That's what gets a lot of people looking into and eventually leading to this subject. So if that's you, what I want to say is, if you can feel your deceased loved one, then you can feel my deceased loved ones, and feeling them is that first step. Translating that feeling into words, I feel a person with me, and just translating those feelings into more and more specific language, that is mediumship. So I think the next video I'll do is called How You Can Start. So tune in for that one. And thank you for your time on this one.